Hello. This is Antya from Byte Shuffle. Thank you as always for watching my videos. This time, I've put together a guide on how to approach the sneak and show matchup when playing Ad Nauseam Tendrils, as well as my thoughts on sideboarding. It's a bit old, but there's a video about the basics of Ad Nauseam Tendrils linked in the description and at the end of this video, so feel free to check it out if you're interested. Here is the deck list we will be using this time. This hand is overloaded with mana acceleration, so I'm going to mulligan. I'm putting G as well on the bottom. I'll use discard to check what's ahead. I took Force of Will. I'm digging for a combo piece. Surveil's effect sends it to the graveyard. I'm digging for a combo piece. I put Cabal Ritual first, then a dual land. I'm digging for a combo piece. I stacked Living Wish, a fetch land, then Infernal Tutor, and drew for turn. The opponent cast Ponder and chose not to shuffle. I'm digging for a disruption spell. I put Living Wish first, then Chrome Mox. I'll use discard to check what's ahead. I thought about taking Sneak Attack, but I decided to bet that they wouldn't find a red mana source on their next turn. I took Force of Will. I'm digging for a disruption spell. Surveil's effect leaves it on top of the library. I'll use discard to check what's ahead. I ended up winning because things broke my way afterward, but after reviewing it, I think this was actually a pretty significant misplay. Even though I happened to take Spell Pierce, and it ended up being the right card to take in this specific spot, I still think that, objectively, I should have taken Sneak Attack here. Looking back, I think that was a very aggressive and somewhat risky line. I'm going all in from here. I'll increase the mana needed for the combo. I'll activate Lion's Eye Diamond to enable Hellbent. Since I'm starting at 14 life, my goal here is to remove the opponent's sneak attack, and if I can also increase the number of cards in my hand, that's good enough for now. I got a bit lucky there, so I'm going to ride that momentum and go for the win. I win with Tendrils of Agony. Before sideboarding, I'd like to review the list we used. First, the conclusion. I will explain it step by step. These are the key cards from Sneak and Show that impact Ad Nauseam Tendrils. First, we have various counterspells such as Force of Will, Flusterstorm, Spell Pierce, Force of Negation, Consign to Memory, and Pyroblast. Against these counterspells, we bring in additional copies of Flusterstorm. Flusterstorm can counter the opponent's Show and Tell. And when we attack their hand with discard, even if they respond with Veil of Summer, Flusterstorm can counter the Veil of Summer, making it a useful proactive tool as well. Additionally, to neutralize the opponent's soft counters, we bring in Carpet of Flowers. In exchange, we cut cards like Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal, and Cabal Ritual. The idea here is to cut mana acceleration that costs us cards, such as Plastic Mana, and replace it with more powerful cards. Next, let's talk about Veil of Summer. This is a card that has troubled Storm players for many years. As many of you probably know, if the opponent casts Veil of Summer, we can no longer cast Tendrils of Agony targeting them. To address that, I'd like to show an example of how Living Wish can be used to play around Veil of Summer. First, we cast Thoughtseize. Let's assume the opponent responds with Veil of Summer. If we cast Veil of Summer in response, in my experience, opponents often choose not to counter it. After that, we build up our storm count to a reasonable level, and then we use Living Wish to search for Stormscale Scion and cast it. Even if we cast it with a storm count of only 4, we'll end up with a total of 588 dragons on the battlefield, the original plus 4 token copies. It depends on how many permanents are on the battlefield, but in my experience, we can often still win even if the opponent has already put a lone Emrakul the Aeon's Torn or a Traxa Grand Unifier onto the battlefield. Next, let's look at another example. This time, we use Living Wish to search for Witherbloom Apprentice. After that, we build up our storm count, and then cast Tendrils of Agony targeting ourselves. As a result, a copy of the spell is put onto the stack for each point of storm, and Witherbloom Apprentice triggers each time. For example, if we cast Tendrils of Agony with a storm count of 9, Tendrils of Agony alone will cause the opponent to lose a total of 10 life. Of course, for this line to work, we still need support from cards like Ad Nauseam or Gia's Will, as well as things like life loss from the opponent's Ancient Tomb. Without that kind of backup, it's certainly difficult to win with Witherbloom Apprentice alone. That said, compared to the old days, when resolving our combo only to have the opponent cast Veil of Summer often left us completely helpless, I think this is a very realistic and practical win condition. Next, we have Magus of the Moon. To prepare for it, we keep all of our basic lands in the deck. Finally, we have Grafdigger's Cage. As for this card, we generally choose to ignore the opponent's graveyard hate. The reason is that the opponent's clock is usually either extremely slow, or the game is effectively over before combat damage ever matters. As a result, the Ad Nauseam line rarely gets shut down. Some of you might be worried that, even if we resolve Ad Nauseam, we won't always be able to finish the game that same turn. However, for example, if Ad Nauseam fills our hand with cards and allows us to chain multiple discard spells, then even if we pass the turn and aim to win on the following turn, we're usually in a position that is very close to winning already. When casting Ad Nauseam, it's surprisingly important to remember that there are lines where you can win even across multiple turns. This hand is overloaded with tutors, so I'm going to mulligan. I'm putting Tendrils of Agony on the bottom. This hand is much better than the last one. My opponent shuffled off a Ponder. I'm digging for land. Surveil's effect leaves it on top of the library. To hold up Flusterstorm, I'm putting Lotus Petal onto the battlefield first. I'll cast Veil of Summer. I'm going to dig for some mana acceleration. I put back Flusterstorm and the fetch land, but in hindsight, I think putting back the island would have been better. I search for Lion's Eye Diamond. I'm going all in from here. I'm going to start with Veil of Summer and see how they respond. I considered not paying the 2 mana and just jamming here, but the deck still contains 20 mana sources in total, 13 lands and 7 mana accelerants. So rather than taking an unnecessary risk, I decided to pay the mana. I think I got pretty lucky there. With Infernal Tutor, if I can get up to 6 mana and have Lion's Eye Diamond, I can win from there. With Beseech the Mirror, if I can get up to 4 mana and have at least 1 artifact or enchantment on the battlefield, I can win from there. I build up my mana and increase my storm count. I'll use Discard to check what's ahead. Thank you very much for watching until the end. I apologize for the many misplays along the way. I hope we can all continue to improve at Magic together. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. I'll see you again in the next video. This is Antya, signing off.